Hello everyone and welcome to my Grasshopper Python tutorial. In this tutorial video I'm going to show you how you can make your own component in Grasshopper. It's so easy. If you know how to use Grasshopper, that means you can work with the Grasshopper Python components so easily. So in this video I have three components, but I'm going to only explain the second component. In here you can see, I guess this is the complex one. But yeah, I have three components. Let me just briefly explain like what are those components. The first component is we are going to give a curve to the first component. It moves the curve in z direction, which we are going to use. Our first parameter is going to be the height, and then it rotates this curve, which is going to be the second parameter is the rotation degree, and then it creates a loft between these two curves, and then it caps the open B-wrap, and we have the solids closed solids B-wrap. This is the first component, which is in here. This is the first component. In the second component, we are going to take this. Let me just draw a cylindrical shape. In the second component, we are going to make contour curves, but it's not like the regular Grasshopper's contour. I mean, this is the second one. This is not going to be this same as the Grasshopper, because in the Grasshopper you need to put a distance as an input, but I want to give the numbers of curves that I want to have. So I mean, for example, if we say 10 as an input, it will give us 10 curves. If we say 12, it's going to give us 12 curves. At 20 curves. If we say 50, it's going to give us the 50 curves, and it goes on and on and on like that. In the third component, which is here, in third component, let me just draw the circle real quick. This is the one contour curve that we have. In third component, we're going to give a thickness to these curves and make them a B-wrap, and also scale them and make them a little bit bigger. That is seen in here. You can see in here it is a little bit bigger because we scale them. So let's just jump to the second component and make the second component from scratch. You will understand everything about the Grasshopper Python for sure, I'm sure that. Let's jump into the second component. Let's start to create the second component from scratch. So in the first component, you can see that we are creating a closed solid B-wrap, which is going to be the base of our parametric skyscraper. You can see we can use those parameters to change the height and the rotation. In the second component, you can see this is the Grasshopper script version of the second component. We need a B-wrap, which we create this in our first component, and we end up with, you can see, the contour curves that we have in here. So simple, so easy. We can make it so easily, you will see. Let's just turn preview off to this one. And let me just take these connections off because it will be a mess. So let's get our Grasshopper Python script component in here. You can see we have inputs, outputs. Let me just quickly explain like what are all of those things. So for example, if you want to use curve as an input, or if you want to use an integer number as an input, or if you want to use a frictional number as an input. You need to firstly connect these into your Grasshopper Python components, and then you need to do more things. I mean, if you have like one curve, you need to say the axis, item axis, or I mean, if you have multiple like list axis, other kind of stuff, and you need to mention that in here. Right click again, and the type hints at the bottom. You can see the type hints button, and then you will mention that you are working with curves. For example, you are going to work with the integer. You are going to come here, type hints, and then select the integer. If you want to work with the fractional numbers, you are coming here, do the same thing, and go to the float. You will do, for example, there are lots of things. You can see brep, polyline, data time, all those stuff in here. Let's just delete those things, and let's just directly jump into our components. Okay, let's start to work with the components. This is the our components. Let me just delete everything that we have in here, and then we can start over. So yeah, firstly, what we need, if we want to work with the number of curves that we want to put in a contour, we need to know the heights. For example, let's just think of this box. If we know this, if we know the height of the box, we can, for example, let's say it's 100. So if we know this, we can divide this into the number that we want, and then it ends up with the curve number that we want to have. So let's just create firstly a bounding box, and I will explain it also in Grasshopper, and you will understand like what is going on in here. So let me just firstly show you on Grasshopper, maybe you will understand better. So let's say yes, apply. So firstly, this is our brep. Firstly, we need to have a bounding box to have to learn the height. So we get the edge. You can see we got this edge, and we got the edge length, and then we are dividing the length, and then we have the points of it. So and then we are using the brep plane, the cutter component, and then we are end up with the curves. And I also add a little difference in here, and I also add the top part. If you need, you can also add the top parts, top curve, the this side, this point in here, but it's not necessary. You can make another thing to the top. So let's just jump into the Python. Let me just open the preview, and then we can test the scripts while we are making. Let's put the shape. You can see the shape is in brep. Let's start. So and also in here you can see I have some words in here. What are those words? I need to, for example, let's just talk with the last one. I need to import the Grasshopper Python library of components to use the components in Grasshopper. And I don't want to write all this long sentence in every word. I say this is also called GH. So when I write GH, it automatically understands that I mentioned this one. So okay, firstly, what we have, what we need to have a bounding box. Let's go to the bounding box component in here and see what are the inputs and what are the outputs easily. So we are going to type GH to access the Python library components panel. Let's get the bounding box. Yeah, you can see at the bottom it's gonna tell us everything that we need to know about it. Like you can see the inputs, content geometry plane returns box. You can see it just directly shows us everything that we need to know. So what we need content and we need a plane. Let's say shape to our content, which we are mentioning here. You can see in the first component I mentioned this as a shape, and I got the shape in here. So but also we need a plane, so we need to mention a plane also. Let's say plane, and let's say GH. Let's use the XY plane. We need an origin point for plane, you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a construct. I always write this one wrong. Construct point, yes, okay. So it can be 0, 0, 0. You can see in here it wants us to put 3 inputs: x coordinate, y coordinate, and z coordinate. Let's just close it, boom, boom, and let's just test this one. So yeah, of course it's not gonna work because we didn't write the plane here. Let's close it, and you can see we get the plane output, and we get the plane input, content input, and the we want to have this box. Test it. It's worked right now. Let's just check if there's a problem in plane or not. Yeah, it's gonna give us plane. So yes, you can see in here we have the plane in here. Let's check if there's a problem in bounding box or not. So as you can see in here, bounding box has 2 outputs. So we need to use one of them. So what we are going to do in this case, we are going to put a dot and say box. Let's test this one, and let's say BB and test it. Yep, you can see that we have our bounding box in here. Yeah, okay, we have the bounding box in here. So let's delete it and let's continue to our script. What we're going to do next is deconstruct brep, because we need to have this height. So let's just write deconstruct brep, gh deconstruct brep. Alright, so you can see in here we have one input, which is going to be the bounding box that we have in here. Let's just Ctrl C, Ctrl V. This is our input, and the returns are face, edge, and vertices. So we need edge, this edge, or maybe this edge, or maybe the other edge. We need one of them. You can see if you write 8 in the index, you will have the height one of this. I guess it's this one. So let's just close it. So right now we have the bounding box and its outputs. So let's call line to this one. Let me just show you. To this one, we need to find this one. How we can do this? Let's call line gh list item. So it says, you can see it here, it says firstly it needs to have a base list, which our base list is going to be deconstruct brep points edge, index going to be 8, and then it says it needs to wrap boolean wrap index to list bounds. You can see in default is true, so we can write true. So right now let's just check there's a problem or not. There's no problem. Let me just close this preview off, and let's just check if it works or not. I always check like if it works or not. Yeah, it is works perfectly in here. So in the next step we need to know the length of this line. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to call lengths gh length. So you can see in here it says input is going to be curve, the return is number, the curve length. So let's say line in here. Right now we have the length. So what we're going to do in the next, let me just check because in the next stage we will be more strong, because if we have a problem we will resolve it immediately. Let's just check, do we have length? Yep, we have the length. Let's continue with this length, because I mean, you can see this is the length is here. If we just change it, it directly changes. So yeah, let's continue. The next step is going to be the division. So in this part we are going to use our first parameter, and we're going to put this into the Python. So I'm going to say division, let's say division gh division, and you can see it needs us to put inputs, and the output is going to be the result of the division. So firstly we're going to say length, and the next one is going to be number. Bam. So if you do this, you can see we need to put a number in here. Let's say 1 to 50, let's say. Okay, so put this one here. Let's say this is cool. So, but since we are working with integers, you need to check the integer box in here. Let's just check if it works or not. Division output and test it. You can see, yep, it's working. So let's continue. The next step is, right now we came to the contour one. So let's say contour gh contour. So you can see it wants us to have 4 inputs, and it gives us 2 inputs. So the first input is the curve that we found in here, which we called it line. Let's write it right there, line. The second input is the points. We can say that it's the origin. Let's say construct points. Oop, did it wrong. Let me just write it again, just to be on the safe side. GH construct points. It's going to be 0, 0, and then 0 again. Let's just open the contour and let's see the inputs again. Point, and we need a direction, which is the vector. So we don't have a vector yet, so we need to create a vector. We need to have a direction. So since we are working with the x-axis and z-axis, we need to create a vector to the z-axis. So let's just create a vector. So let's say vector gh vector 2 points. So we are going to use the construct point components again. 0, 0, 0, 0. The first point is going to be the origin. Close it. The second point is going to be gh constructs point is going to be 0, 0, and 1, which shows us vector goes up by 1 in z direction. Let's just close it. Alright, so we have the vector. Let me just check if our vector is working or not, because sometimes it's not working. I made a mistake, or we made a mistake, and then it's not working. So let's just check if it works or not. If we have a problem, we can solve it immediately. Vector, let's test it. Okay, yeah, okay, there's a problem. You can see here, if we call vector 2 point, it needs us 3 inputs, not 2. Point A, point B, and unitize. It's officially, it's normally false, so we can just call it false. Alright, so it has to work right now. Yep, you can see it is a vector. So we got our vector right now. So let's just come to the contour again. GH contour. Curve is the line that we create before. The point is going to be the origin point, which is 0, 0, and 0, and close it. And the next one is going to be, let's just check it again. You can see that we have direction and distance. So direction is going to be the vector that we create. So I say vector right now, and the number is going to be the division that we create. And let's check if there's a problem or not. Yes, there's a problem. Yeah, problem is in vector again. Why? Because vector has 2 outputs, and we need that vector output, not the length output. You can see in the vector we have 2 outputs, so we need to mention that we need to have to take the vector. Yes, it is working right now. So let's just check contours and test it. Wait. Ooh, there's a problem. Did I write it wrong, or let me just check the problem. Contour, yeah, it's not contours, it's contour. Test. Yeah, we have 2 lists because I always make that mistake, because contour has 2 outputs. You can see contour and parameters. So let's say C is contour. This one has to be big. Contour points, contours. And let's see if it works or not. Yep, it is working. Nice. So we can continue. If it's working, we can continue. So in the next step, we are going to use. We are going to use brep plane. There we have. Okay, let's write it in here. So what we can say that slice. I guess it's a nice term. Slice. Grasshopper. Brep x plane that we're going to use. So what we need a brep and plane. Or brep is going to be the shape that we put in here. So let's say shape, but also we need a plane, so that we need to create a plane. So what we're going to do, let's say planes, and let's say GH XY, GH XY, and it's going to be XY plane. Let's say contour. Wait, let me just check the output again. Contours. Or is it points or contours? Yeah, I guess it's contours. So let's just check it. If it works or not, we will see. And let's say planes. When we test it, let's say planes, test it. Yeah, okay, the planes are nice. So let's just check the slice. Bam. Alright, it's not working because it probably have two output again. Yeah, you can see the curves and points. So let's say what we can say, we can call contours, I guess. Did I write it right? Yeah, I think it's right. GH, no, not GH. Slice, points, curves. Let's see if it's working or not. This is the moment of truth. Contours. Test it. Yep, it is working. So right now we make the thing that we want to make. You can see when we change the number, it changes in Rhino and also Grasshopper. You can see in here. Let me just show you in here. When you change the number, it directly changes the slices that we have. So that's it for this component. We can see that we have everything that we need to have to make a slice for with the numbers that we put, which is the number of curves that we want to have. So let's just jump back again to the three components that I mentioned before, which the second one I showed here. And let's see the connection between these three. All right, let's come back into our main Grasshopper script. You can see our three components in here that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. We made this second component from scratch. You can see in here. We made this from scratch like a minute ago. So let's just talk the reaction. Let's just talk the connection between those components one by one. And let me just turn this custom previews off. So you can see, let's just start with the first one. You can see we can change its height and the rotation. You can see in here. Let's just change it for like too much rotation. If you like too much rotation, you can make it. Let's just say I guess this is enough, because if you go too much, the surface will be broken, like the surface will have some problems. So yeah, this is, I guess, is enough. So in this, let me just open the script. You can see what we did in here. We assign a curve from Rhino to Grasshopper, and then you can see in here we move the curve. Let me just write it better in here. We assign a curve, we move it in here, and then we have a height, which is our first parameter. You can see we call it unit z. Units. What is the unit z? I make a 2-point vector component in here, and I give the last point numbered to a height component that we can make our vector. For example, like this is the origin that I give in here, and I create my vector in here, and it can goes up and down, and it's gonna create our height parameter. So And then what I did is I just rotate this in the angle that I want. So in here you can see that rotation, this is the rotation, and this is the rotation parameter that I give. So and then I use lofts basically to create this closed solid shape, and then I kept the lofts and it becomes a closed solid B-wrap. That's the point. Let's just close it. And in the second one, you already know we did it together. Let's just came here and let's just do a little recap. We create contours. That, I mean, this is the contours that we want to have. But I did a little bit addition in here, and also I add the top part because it's just for good looking. If you don't need to put this one. I want to see the top part also, so I add a top part and I deconstruct and I use deconstruct B-wrap to the shape, and I got the top edge and I add it in here. You can see in here, and I merged these two, this slice that we created before, and I also put the top curve, and then we have our curves. In the last one, we don't need to close it. Let's just put this one open, and in the last one we can see that we give size and height to our contours, like we make them into solid objects. You can see that we can change their height. No, we can change their size. I mean, size maybe is not the right word to use in here, because since you are changing height, it also changes the size. But yeah, it's just what I say in here. You can just change it whatever you like, and we can change the height for whatever we would like. This is a pretty simple script. We use the scale. Firstly, we scale the contours, which I say that the size, like we have the contour, we scale it, and then we give it a thickness. That's the point of this component. And you can see in here, I also create another unit Z, and I give it the height. You can see in here the height, and I use the size like I mentioned here. It is this input, and the height, this is this input. You can see it's a simple script, but it's so effective, I guess. So at the end, let's just turn these previews off, up, and let's just open these previews. You can see we have this shape. Let me just make it more realistic building. Yeah, this is it. This is how you can create your own parametric skyscraper with using Grasshopper Python. It's so easy. You can make lots of variations easily. Just assign one curve, and the Grasshopper Python can create your lots of variations. So thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the next tutorials.